Hello, this is Paranormal Girl. This video I'm going to talk about is a subject that seems to be circulating around right now as we speak. And it's about these dark pyramids under Alaska. But what people don't realize is this has been going on for some time now. And it was first discovered back in World War II. So let's delve into this and find out what it's all about. There is a black pyramid buried deep underground in the Alaskan wilderness, somewhere between Nome and Mount McKinley. It's exactly twice the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now think of that. We know how big this pyramid in Giza is. So you imagine it's twice the size of that again. And we're talking something so megalithic. How on earth did we manage to miss this? It's the tallest known human-made structure for nearly 3,800 years. And this dark pyramid is guarded by the US military. Or it could be guarded by a mysterious private militia that strictly controls access to the site. And that might explain why we don't know anything about this. But there are a lot of people that do know, and this is what I'm going to explain further on in this video. It could be ancient alien technology. That's very possible. Or it could be a remnant of a lost human civilization. And here's something else we don't really know about. But they have found that it generates its own energy, which could very well be something similar to electricity. Regardless of this, it's estimated to have enough power to power up the entire state of Alaska, or even the entire nation of Canada. It was first discovered in the closing months of World War II. And despite its supposedly ancient provenance, evidence of the Black Pyramid's existence didn't appear until the 26th of July 2012, when a reporter and cattle mutilation expert, Linda Moulton Howe, announced its discovery on a late-night conspiracy radio talk show called Coast to Coast AM. That evening, Moulton Howe broadcast a pre-recorded interview with Doug Mashusler, and I probably said that wrong, Muchler even, a retired US Army counterintelligence warrant officer who provided many of the initial facts about the pyramid and first alleged the site's current connection with the US military. A website called Ghost Theory provides a good summary of Muchler's claims. On May 22nd, 1992, China carried out an underground nuclear test in Lumpur, detonating a 1 megaton device under the desert of the northwest China, and was at first thought to be a major earthquake when detected by some seismologists. According to Muchler, geologists had used the detonation to undertake a seismographic study of the Earth's crust, only to find a pyramid structure larger than Cheops, underground somewhere west of Mount McKinley. Muchler recalls that the local NBC affiliate ran a story announcing the structure's discovery about 6 months after the detonation. And when Muchler attempted to follow up with the station to get a copy of the story, they denied that the story had ever run and asserted that they certainly didn't have a copy to provide. Muchler then called relatives to track down copies of the story that had run on other stations, but apparently none had. The discovery only appeared on the Anchorage Channel 13. And in case you need to add some numerological significance to the whole thing, even leaving aside the entire ancient mega pyramid angle, Muchler's story is practically dripping with RPG inspiration. The easy route is to conclude that the TV station personnel were working, after the fact of course, to protect the conspiracy attempting to hide the pyramid. But you could have as much or more fun in the game thinking, well, anyone's an honest player, aren't they? What if the station never really did broadcast the story? And there's the game. What if Muchler and his friends inadvertently intercepted a story with an alternative reality? Anyway, it gets better. Muchler was transferred from Alaska to Fort Meade, the ultra-secret home of the National Security Agency, where he availed himself of classified archives seemingly confirming the pyramid story. He quoted to say, "I thought maybe they'd have something about this pyramid, so I went to have a look to see what I could find, and what I guess would be like a librarian. And I asked the librarian if he had anything on the archaeological sites. I didn't actually say the pyramid, but I said archaeological sites or underground facilities in Alaska. He said, well, if we do, it might be in container X, Y, or Z. So I went over there and I was just looking around and didn't really find anything saying pyramid. But I grabbed a couple of Alaska, like from 2 different safes. And I just settled down and these 2 guys came. You know, you can feel like when someone's standing behind you. And these 2 goons say, hey, you don't have a need to know that information. And the other guy somehow in that conversation goes, they don't want us messing with them up there anymore, do they? They don't want you messing with them up there either. Actually, they don't want us or anybody messing with them. That morning after Moulton Howe's interview with Muchler, however, things really got weird. Inspired by Muchler's dogged but ultimately only partially successful search, the adopted son of a retired Western Electric engineer reached out to Moulton Howe to confirm the basics of Muchler's claims and to add several new wrinkles. Moulton Howe's new source claimed that his father had worked on a powerful electrical system emanating from a very large underground pyramid of unknown origin in Alaska between 1959 and 1961. He detailed, after the war, we earned a degree in electrical engineering and physics. After finishing college, my father was re-recruited by the military to join a group of other experts to study and work at the underground structure in Alaska that, in his words, they called the Dark Pyramid. He spoke numerous times of how seriously the government took this project and the steps that they took to keep it secret. I always assumed it was a military installation, he said, and it was a study of energy distribution. He went on to be the key leader of the information bubble for the AT&T, which of course was the precursor to the web and cell phone technology we all know today. In his later years, he would always complain when receiving his electric bill that it would be free if we knew the truth. Now, I'm starting to think he knew a lot more than we ever gave him credit for. I'm in the process of going through his old papers, he said, and studies to see if there's any reference to his time in Alaska. They may be of no information since he said it was confidential. If this pyramid allegedly found in 1992 is true, then the government may have known about it far earlier than that and had taken extensive measures to keep it hidden. So let's have a look at the alien theory of what these pyramids might actually be. Since 1998, there have been over 560 reported UFOs, per the National UFO Reporting Center in Alaska, with the majority of sightings in what is known as the Alaskan Triangle. A large alien base, in his book 1997, Remote Viewers by Jim Schnabel, told the story of the U.S. intelligence community's involvement in the controversial issue of the psychic spying that largely began in the early to mid-1970s, commenting on the skills of a talented remote viewer in relation to matters of a UFO nature. One, Pat Price. Schnabel noted Price was of the opinion that Alaska's Mount Hayes, the jewel of the glacial range northeast of Anchorage, housed one of the aliens' largest bases. According to Pat Price, the aliens that lived deep inside Mount Hayes were very human-looking, differing only in their heart, their lungs, blood and eyes. Ominously, he added that the aliens use thought transfer for motor control of us. He added, the site has also been responsible for strange activity and malfunction of the US and Soviet space objects. Rather notably, despite the controversial nature of this story, we find that the US military took a great deal of interest in the tales of the UFO activity in Alaska in the formative years of the subject. For example, formerly classified FBI files tell of a startling UFO counter in Alaska in the period of 1947 to 1950. Kind of like the X-Files, eh? It was in August of 1947 that the highly impressive account of the UFO incident involving two serving members of the military was supplied to the FBI at Anchorage. A little bit of Mulder and Scully now, is it? The report began. This is to advise that two Army officers reported to the Office of the Director of Intelligence Headquarters, the Alaskan Department at Fort Richardson, Alaska, that they had witnessed an object passing through the air at a tremendous rate of speed, which could not be judged to as miles per hour. According to the official report, the UFO was initially sighted by only one of the two officers, but he soon alerted his colleague to the strange sight. The object appeared to be shaped like a sphere and didn't give the impression of being a saucer, like or comparable to a disc. The first officer stated that it would be impossible to give minute details concerning the object, but that it appeared to be approximately 2 or 3 feet in diameter and did not leave any vapor trail in the sky. Being the experienced officer that he was, in his first attempt to gauge the altitude of the object, and from a comparison with cloud formations in the area, he determined that whatever the nature of the mysterious sphere was, cruising at a height of more than 10,000 feet. And it should be noted that to be at such a height and still be visible, in all probability the UFO must have exceeded a wide margin the initial size estimate of 2 or 3 feet. When questioned, the second officer gave a substantially similar account, the only marked difference being that, in his opinion, he considered the object to have been approximately 10 feet in diameter and compared it to half the size of a full moon on an ordinary night. This discrepancy in size was apparently due to the fact that the second officer believed the UFO was more likely to have been at a height of 3,000 to 4,000 feet, rather than at an altitude of 10,000 feet, as had been suggested by his colleague. This difference of opinion over the altitude and size of the object may or may not have been significant. The important factor, however, was that both officers agreed that some type of anomalous object had most definitely been seen. And as the report concluded, the second officer pointed out that one of the remarkable features of this report was that it was definitely travelling against the wind. Shortly afterward, the FBI officer at Anchorage reported to the Bureau Director of J. Edgar Hoover that we have been able to locate a flyer observed by some flying object near Bethel, Alaska in July 1947. The report to Hoover continued. The pilot related that the occasion of seeing the flying object near Bethel was on a July day when the sky was completely clear of clouds, and it being during the early part, it is daylight the entire night. The time of his sighting, this flying object, was about 10 p.m, and the sun had just dropped beyond the horizon. Flying weather was extremely good, and he was coming into Bethel Airport with a DC -3, whatever that means, if anyone knows anything about flying. On approaching the airport, the pilot was amazed to see his left an unidentified craft the size of a C-54 without any fuselage, which seemed to resemble a flying wing. As a result of its unique shape, the pilot was initially able to determine whether the object was heading towards his aircraft or away from it, and elected to make a 45-degree turn in an attempt to defuse any possible chance of collision. The FBI noted that the pilot was certain that the craft was free of any external power source such as a propeller-driven engine and exhibited no exhaust as it flew by. The document added, he called on his radio to the Civil Aeronautics Administration station at Bethel, asking what the aircraft was in the vicinity, and they had no reports of any aircraft at all. The object he sighted was some 5 or 10 miles from the airport before his arrival, and he stated that the path did not go directly across the airport. He, of course, could not tell whether the object was making any noise, and stated that it was flying at 1,000-foot altitude and estimated to be travelling at 3,000 miles an hour. He said it was travelling in the direction from Bethel to Nome, which is the northwesterly direction. He noted no radio interference and is unable to describe the colour other than it appeared dark but of definite shape and did not blend into the sky but had a definite concise outline. He clearly observed the object at this time. As the 1940s drew to a close, a new decade dawned, and the FBI continued to receive and log high-quality UFO reports on a regular basis. Of those, one of the more credible related to a noteworthy series of encounters that occurred in the Alaskan airspace over the course of 2 days was in early 1950. Forwarded to the FBI by an official US Navy source, the confidential 3-page intelligence report paints a startling picture of multiple UFO encounters involving the military, titled Unidentified Phenomena in Vicinity of Kodiak, Alaska. It concerns a report of sightings of unidentified airborne objects by various naval personnel on the 22nd and 23rd of January 1950. The author of the report noted at 22:24 OW, January, whatever that means, Lieutenant Smith of the USN Patrol Plane Commander of P2V3 number 4 of Patrol Squadron 1 reported an unidentified radar contact 20 miles north of the Naval Air Station of Kodiak, Alaska. When his contact was first made, Lieutenant Smith was flying the Kodiak Security Patrol at 024-3W. 8 minutes later, a radar contact was made on an object 10 miles southeast of NAS Kodiak. Lieutenant Smith checked in with the control tower to determine known traffic in the area and was informed that there was none. During this period, the radar operator Gasky, ALC-USN, reported intermittent radar interference of a type never before experienced. Contact was lost at this time, but intermittent interference continued. Smith and Gasky were not the only two to report that unidentified vehicles had intruded into the Alaskan airspace. At the time of these encounters, the USS Tilbrook was anchored in the vicinity of Buoy 19 in the nearby main ship channel. On board the Tilbrook was a seaman named Morgan. His first name we really don't know. He was standing watch, and at some point between 0200 and 0300 hours, Morgan reported that a very fast-moving red light, which appeared to be of an exhaust nature, seemed to come from the southeast. It moved clockwise in a large circle in the direction of and around Kodiak, and returned out in a generally southeast direction. Perhaps not quite believing what he was seeing, Morgan alerted one of his shipmates, Carver, to the strange spectacle, and both watched as the UFO made a return flight. According to the testimony of Morgan and Carver, the object was in sight for an estimated 30 seconds. No odor or sound was at all detected, and the object was described to have the appearance of a ball of fire about 1 foot in diameter. The report then records yet another encounter with the mystery visitor at 22044 OW. Conducting routine Kodiak security patrol, Lieutenant Smith reported a visual sighting of an unidentified airborne object at a range of 5 miles on the starboard bow. This object showed indications of great speed on the radar scope. The trailing edge of the blip gave a tail-like indication. Lieutenant Smith quickly advised the rest of the crew of the PV-23 number 24 that the UFO was in sight, and all watched fascinated as the strange vehicle soared overhead at a speed estimated to have been around 1,800 miles per hour. Smith climbed to intercept the UFO and vainly tried to circle it. Needless to say, its high speed and remarkable manoeuvrability ensured that Smith's actions were futile. However, neither Lieutenant Smith nor his crew were quite prepared for what happened next. Subsequently, the object seemed to be opening the range. The official report reads, and Smith attempted to close the range. The UFO was observed to open out somewhat, and then to turn to the left and come up on Smith's quarter. Smith considered this to be a highly threatening gesture and turned out all lights in the aircraft. 4 minutes later, the object disappeared from view in the southeasterly direction. At 04:3500 hours on the following day, Lieutenants Barco and Causa of Patrol Squadron 1 were conducting the Kodiak security patrol when they too sighted an unidentified aerial vehicle. At the time of their encounter, the aircraft in which the officers were flying was approximately 62 miles south of Kodiak. For 10 minutes, Barco and Causa, along with the pilot, Captain Paulson, watched stunned as the mysterious object twisted and turned in the Alaskan sky. An assessment of these reports read thus. To Lieutenant Smith and crew, it appeared as 2 orange lights rotating about a common centre, like 2 jet aircraft making slow rolls in tight formation. It had a wide speed range. To Morgan and Carver, it appeared as a reddish-orange ball of fire about 1 foot in diameter, travelling at a high rate of speed 3. To Causa, Barco and Paulson, it appeared to be a pulsating orange-yellow projectile-shaped flame with regular periods of pulsation on 3 to 5 seconds. Later, as the object increased the range, the pulsations appeared to increase to a 7 or 8 seconds as an on and an off at 7 to 8 seconds. In other words, it seems safe to conclude that genuinely anomalous phenomena were indeed witnessed by the experienced military personnel at Kodiak, Alaska in January 1950. So, what are your thoughts on this Black Pyramid? Do you think it's actually an alien base? Or do you actually think it's more human in nature? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be interested in your thoughts. Thank you for listening.